A state lawmaker wants to hold landlords accountable.
It is an effort to protect renters from what he calls unsafe conditions.
News 4's Adria Goins is at the Capitol.
When the legislative session gets underway in just a few weeks, this is one bill Representative Mickey Dolan says he hopes garners bipartisan support. He says if it's pushed through, it could lead to safer housing for many Oklahomans. It's a common problem. Called into News 4.
I mean, the whole place is nothing but mold.
We have 3 different types of mold.
A serious mold condition that is affecting me and my children.
Dolan says he's trying to tackle this growing problem this legislative session through a proposed bill.
If a tenant notifies their landlord that there's mold in their apartment or around it, the landlord has up to 3 days to address the issue and a total of 7 days to finish treatment.
He says if the landlord fails to fix the issue by the deadline, the bill would require the landlord pay a $1,000 fine and any medical bills for the renter.
And this is by no way is to give a black eye to all landlords. We've got some great and responsible local landlords in Oklahoma and even some out of state. But the big problems tend to come from these hedge fund investors who gobble up hundreds of houses and then are very unattentive to those tenants' needs.
Dolan says his office gets calls on mold issues constantly, which is why he's pushing the bill. He says he wants landlords to be held accountable, especially when it comes to Oklahomans and their health.
My hope is that this will encourage landlords to do the right thing, to take care of the mold that their tenants are living with, and we can prevent people from getting sick, getting mold infection, having asthma problems.
At the Capitol, Adria Goins, Oklahoma's News 4.
All right, Adria. Now, the bill still has a long way to go. The first step, it will go before a committee. We reached out to the Oklahoma Landlord Association and other groups for comment on the proposed legislation. We are still waiting to hear back.
Just brace yourself because it's pretty bad.
Sam's bedroom is now out of bounds.
I'm concerned about my health because when it was already a small problem, I, went to the GP and, sure enough, there were levels of mold in my blood at that point. And this was a few months ago before it was this bad.
How long has this been like this?
I've been living with the mold problem since May. I would say that it excelled pretty rapidly. I mean, there's fuzz and these, starfish-looking things I've never seen before. I don't know, what's what. So it's pretty astonishing to see how rapidly this has deteriorated. The whole carpet is flooded.
As a private tenant, Sam has been paying £1,100 a month in rent.
We can see the mold and the damp, but you really smell it, can't you? It really kind of gets in your throat as well.
It's pungent. I mean, if I have to come in here even for a couple of seconds, I'm usually covering my face with something just because it's so bad.
And it's a 1-bedroom flat, and you have not been sleeping in this bedroom?
No, I've kind of turned my living room into a bedroom. It's grown up underneath the bed.
Many of his possessions are now ruined.
All this is going to need to be replaced because...
So all that's a write-off. The TV?
Television. I've got photos and books in there that are irreplaceable that have now been saturated in water. And I just try to avoid coming in here at all costs.
And today, I woke up to this.
But many of Sam's neighbours have damp problems. Kingman Lam has a hole in his ceiling where water comes through every time it rains.
This is quite a serious problem. Like, if I can't visit my parents or something.
Yeah, every time it rains, basically.
Yeah, I've been stressed, because that is not enough. That's just temporary.
But people living in these flats are not alone. New figures show that 80,000 social housing homes in England have similar mould and damp problems.
And mould is a killer. 2-year-old Awab Ishak lost his life from a severe respiratory condition after living too close to high levels of mould.
I don't think the government has taken any interest in the quality of housing stock until the most recent case that hit the headlines. Certainly, I wouldn't have confidence that if I went to government at the moment about Queen's House, that I would see government respond and act. And that's a concern. I think they have to take this a lot more seriously than they have done up to now.
In a statement, Queen's House landlord told us when it came to our attention that our previous managing agent was not looking after the block, we immediately took action. Whilst months of neglect cannot be rectified overnight, our new agents are well on the way to having this block brought up to a suitable standard. But Sam's had enough. He's now stopped paying rent until the damp problem is sorted.
Well, Rags, this paints a really bleak picture, doesn't it?
That's right. We've just focused on Sam, who's a private tenant. Worth reminding the viewers, he's paying £1,100 a month, or at least until today. But today's report by the regulator looked at social housing, and that's a really bad picture. They estimate that up to 80,000 homes have serious damp and mould problems, and 8,000 are deemed extremely critical. But they say the private sector is probably in a worse condition and less regulated. The government, meanwhile, say they're bringing in their social housing regulation bill soon.
Florida is no stranger to mold problems. It thrives in environments with high humidity and moisture. So if you're a renter, what happens if you find mold in your home or apartment? Who's responsible for that? 10 Tampa Bay's Megan Myers is investigating what you need to know.
I saw a couple water spots on my ceiling, so I immediately sent pictures to the leasing office.
Melissa Cellural rents an apartment in St. Petersburg and says she's been dealing with a leaky roof for months.
That was never fixed, and 13 and a half months later, I was just living in a complete nightmare. There had been mold that developed behind my picture frames on the wall above my bed.
She says she made several complaints, but nothing was done.
I just felt like I was living in a very toxic place.
Law professor Jeffrey Schwartz says when it comes to addressing mold here in Florida, there are two statutes that come into play. The first is Statute 8351.
The landlord at all times during the tenancy shall comply with the requirements of applicable building, housing, and health codes. Mold clearly falls under that definition. So it is the responsibility of the landlord.
But that doesn't release tenants from any responsibility. That's where Statute 8352 comes in,
which says the tenant shall at all times keep that part of the premises which he or she occupies and uses clean and sanitary, or not destroy, deface, or damage or impair the property.
Schwartz says in his experience, most of the time it's not the renter's fault. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, landlords don't address the issue.
Especially in low-income housing, there's a lot of problems there where landlords just don't fix anything.
When this happens, Schwartz says legal action must be the next step.
You can take it to court, or you can place the landlord on notice and end the tenancy.
And documentation to show proof is key, like pictures, videos, and emails.
In particular, if there is a lease, which many of these things are spelled out in a lease, you can claim that the landlord has failed to comply with the lease, put them on notice that you are canceling the lease and you are moving out.
For Melissa Cellural, she's now exploring taking her issue to court while she finds a new place to live.
It was and is still such a battle.
In St. Petersburg, Megan Myers, 10 Tampa Bay.
Now, the Florida Department of Health lists several health problems that can be caused by mold, including toxic effects, allergic illnesses, and infections. They say there are certain people who may be affected more quickly and more severely, like babies, people who are elderly, and those with a weakened immune system. You can find more on 10tampabay.com.
And thanks for joining us. I'm Stacey Van Dyke.
And I'm Justin Betty. We begin tonight with a story that came in through our whistleblower hotline. A West Fargo woman who says she and her children became sick because of black mold in their apartment.
Valley News Team's Zoe Jones shares her warning.
I'm concerned for everyone.
Sue Ellen Madden, a West Fargo mom, is speaking out. She says she lived with black mold in her unit at Riverstone Apartments for more than a year. She says she noticed the mold about a week after she moved in last December.
The first thing I noticed when I moved in, it seemed like water damage or something was wrong in that corner.
Sue Ellen said that she asked for help multiple times.
I showed them, they took pictures, and due to water damage, they covered up the mold, painted right over it.
She also says she's not the only tenant who's had issues.
There's been a lot of talk about the mold. You can see it in units, in the bathroom especially.
Sue Ellen said this is hard for her to see because of how severe it is.
It's very sad, and to know as a mom, a member in our community, we need to do better, and that if they have small children or health issues themselves, they could get more sick.
Sue Ellen is asking for the apartment to be reviewed and for the tenant's safety to be considered.
For how much we're paying and that we're paying for a home and our community, we deserve better. And safety is a big key, and health. And I would ask for someone to look over this apartment because it's mold all through the apartments, even in the hallway.
In West Fargo, Zoe Jones, Valley News Live.
The property owner says they didn't know about the mold until the family moved out, and says the new tenant has already moved in and they are being made aware of the mold history.
If you need help with an issue in your community, call our whistleblower hotline at the number on your screen. Leave us your tip and we'll do our best to get to the bottom of it.